how to arouse interest immediately for what you are going to present. How do you do that in a functional and effective manner? In this video, I'm going to give you 3 interesting ways to just attain that, so that you get inspired to get your audience hooked. Let's have a look. Often I see people start a presentation with the sentence, "I'm going to talk about," and then they immediately dive into the content. But this is not really arousing interest. And what you want when you present is first to get your audience on board, so they're in a place that they really want to receive the main part of your presentation. And the first way of getting your audience on board is to arouse interest for what you're going to present. But how to do that? Because that's easier said than done. And how can you do that in a functional and effective manner? I'm going to show you 3 ways of doing that. I'm going to show here on this side, which I feel, is not that interesting. And then I'm going to juxtapose and tell you, give you another introduction, arousing interest. And I hope that you find it more interesting. And then I reveal to you the technique that I use. And I do that like 3 times. Okay. First way, I can start like this. I'm going to talk about the alternatives for antibiotics. Full stop, diving into the content. Or I could start like this. Do you know that antibiotics within 10 years will no longer work? That we will go back to the pre-war level of 1939 in this respect. Can you imagine? We go back in development like almost 80 years. Not to mention all the diseases that we will not be able to cure anymore. And that's why today I want to talk about etc., etc. So I hope you agree that the latter was the more interesting part. And the technique that I use is the following. I raise a question, and with this question, I immediately put your face into the problem. Do you know that antibiotics within 10 years will no longer work? And then I paint the problem further, layer by layer. We will go back to the pre-war level of 1939. Can you imagine? We go 80 years back in development, not to mention all diseases we'll not be able to cure anymore. And that's why today I want to talk about a new promising alternative. So, raising a question, painting the problem, and then you go to the subject of your presentation. Now, if you don't feel so comfortable with raising immediately a question, what you can do as well is just in a few sentences paint the context, or just tell a little bit about the context, like we have seen people getting resistant and this is happening. And after you have been explaining this context, its background, you can say something, how can we solve this? And then you go to the subject. Well, there's an interesting alternative, etc., etc. Okay, this was the first way. The second way. The second way is to, well, I will introduce it as follows. So a coin has got 2 sides, right? So we just discussed the problem. So the other side of the coin is a solution or a glimmering prospect. So let's say I'm presenting to a department, a financial department of a company. So I could say something like, I'm going to talk about this software system. Full stop, diving in, that's it. Or I could say something like, imagine, or how would it be? Imagine that within 1 year's time, we will have crystal clear budgeting reports, that with one push on the button, we will have a clear actual knowledge about our cash flow and our stock. Can you imagine what that would mean for our company, for our flexibility, for our policy? That's why today I want to talk about a new software system, etc., etc., etc. So now I start with imagine how would it be a glimmering prospect in the future to go arouse your interest and go to the subject that I want to talk about. Now notice that with using a problem and using a solution, I'm appealing to emotion. So these are quite persuasive ways of immediately getting the audience their interest and persuade them. Because in between the lines, I'm actually saying we need to invest in alternatives for antibiotics because otherwise shit would hit the fan. And between the lines, I'm actually saying we should invest in this new software system because then these wonderful things will happen for a company. Now, let's imagine that you do not want to persuade your audience. The simple thing you want to do is you just want to inform. So, for instance, with an update, you want to inform. In this case, you can just ask mere questions because with questions, they're very effective, they're very quick, and you dig a knowledge gap in the brain of the audience. And that needs to be filled because they will be thinking, oh no, I don't know the answers to this. Okay, this is interesting. I'm curious about it. What will be it? So let's say you're talking about an update. You can say something like, what were the interesting developments last quarter? Did we attain what we aimed for? And what are the very important 3 next questions that next actions that we need to focus on? And then you can start. In this update, in this 20 minutes update, I will give you the ins and outs, blah, 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 blah. So you will be well informed. So just asking 3 questions, you arouse their interests. And actually, that's exactly what I did at the beginning of this footage, this video, because I also raised questions to get your interests. Because how do you immediately arouse interest for what you are going to present? So these were the 3 ways to arouse interests in the first 30 seconds when you're going to present. So the first one was to raise a question, put the face of your audience in the problem and paint the problem layer by layer. And the other version was to describe the background in a few sentences and the context, and then end that with the question, how can we solve this? What can we do about this? And then move to the subject of your presentation. The second manner was to start with imagine, how would it be? So with the glimmering prospect and a solution. And the third one, if you want to inform, is just to ask 3 questions. So the 3 questions, what you are going to talk about. So you have their interest. Of course, there are many more ways to arouse the interest of your audience in the first 30 seconds, but maybe these 3 are already interesting ones to start experimenting with. If you are interested in receiving more options, then please just send me an email and I will send you a PDF file with more options. I hope you found it insightful. And if you want to receive more tips, then do not forget to subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button. You can also activate the bell so you get a signal once a fresh monthly video pops up. And I want to thank you for watching, and I wish you more impact, more grip, and more presenting pleasure.